we had at the board where we had the original proposals. And so listened to a lot of feedback from community members, from students, from teachers, and created a revised amount of proposals that we have that we're going to be putting forward for board consideration for a vote on January 14th. So some of the things included in there, probably the most important thing at the top of that list was the change in recommendations for secondary teachers for elective classes. And so we had originally proposed increasing the number of sections that our elective teachers at the secondary level were teaching. And so we revised that and we'll be looking at just a more consistent staffing ratio that we have, similar to our guidelines that we've used in the past, just being more consistent with those ratios. And so we believe that that'll get us some of the necessary reductions that we need as we're moving forward.
Of course. And so with those elective courses, the last recommendation, they had an estimate of 23 full-time positions being removed. This time that was listed as to be determined, and I know that's part of, obviously, with enrollment and the amount of courses people take or what courses people take, but do you have a ballpark estimate? Is it something that's going to possibly on the average decrease from that 23 that you originally set? Yeah,
it'll likely decrease from the 23 that we had originally set. One of the things that's important from the first proposal to the second proposal also is that the board decided not to move forward with the staff market adjustments which was a majority of the administrator adjustment. So we're not moving forward with that. That was about a $500,000 line item, and so we really, our target went from $6 million to $5.5 million, and so that allows us to be able to accommodate the new perspectives that we're having for the secondary staffing. So we believe it'll be less than 23, but we believe we'll be able to be in good shape related to the forecasted deficit.
And piggybacking off of that, the original proposal had like around 70 full-time equivalent positions that were potentially going to get eliminated. Under the new proposal, how many fewer are we looking at?
Still to be determined on that, but certainly going to be less than that 70 amount as we're moving forward. Again, we had an adjustment in what our target is, but it'll be less than we had originally proposed.
And positions are different than people actually being fired from the school district. Do you have any idea of how many people this is actually going to affect? And for some of them, is everybody going to be kind of cut loose from the school district, or would they just get some of their positions taken away and still be within the school district?
Yeah, so it really depends on the situation. So we have many of our staff, again, the positions will be eliminated, as you had mentioned. The displacement process, we have internal processes to be able to place people at different positions, potentially depending on licensure inside the system. We're also prioritizing the ability to take care of a lot of this through attrition. So if there are open positions through retirements or movement during the year, that's our primary goal, is to make sure that we can take care of that either through attrition, which includes retirements, and so we're hopeful we can do a lot of that. Being a bigger district, we have an advantage as we're making some of those reductions.
Is the new proposal going to take care of the whole deficit?
Yes, that's the process, is to be able to work through what the forecasted deficit is for next year. I think also important to understand that in our state funding model for public schools at this point, this is an annual process. It likely won't be at the scale that we have this year, but because our revenues are not able to keep up with our expenses due to just inflationary expenses to keep the lights on and to keep the schools heated, we're constantly underfunded. So that's something that we'll continue to take a look at as we move forward. So just want to make sure that it's not seen as we make these moves and then we're set from a budget standpoint, because we certainly will continue to have work to do in the upcoming years.
When you look back to the last school board meeting you had at Oshkosh North, the amount of people that spoke in favor of trying to at least reduce the number of elective teachers losing positions, we already said that it's looking like it's going to be lower, but does lower mean 22 as opposed to the 23, or do you think that it could be more than that?
No, I think it would be more than that. Yeah, I think it would be, again, you can't give an exact number because that depends on, students' schedules, signing up and schedules. But we certainly appreciate everybody that came out, to our last meeting. Meaningful to hear, from students, hear from teachers, hear from community members, and that was important. And the board appreciates that. I appreciate that, and that led to, some revisions based on the new proposals.
What is
Dr.
this?
Davis, with the shifting from not having teachers teach 6 of 7 periods, this release states the classroom ratios will be closer to 27-1.
Yeah.
Does that mean that if 26 kids sign up for an elective, that won't be taught?
No, we'll have some flexibility in that as we would move forward, and so we'll just probably be more consistent. Some of that depends on some advanced classes sometimes need to be able to continue to run and have those opportunities, but we may not be able to run some of those classes as consistently as we have. So maybe it'd be an every other year type of situation as we would go, but. Again, we need to be able to, for example, we have some of our freshman classes this year, have 20, 22 kids in them to be able to keep class sizes a little bit down. So those classes are going to need to be able to increase, again, to that 27-1 ratio, which is comparable to our peers. It's not an outrageous number of kids to be able to have in class, but it's going to be, an increase, and that's what we need to be able to do in this solution.
And peer coaches has gone back into this with one full-time position. Can you explain the importance of what you heard from the teachers at that December meeting and why they need those peer coaches and why they're so helpful?
Yeah, it's certainly helpful to be able to have that that ear and that support, especially in our first couple of years of teaching. And we know that teacher retention is something that we focus on, recruitment and then retention once they're in the system. We know the value of our peer coaches, and that came through loud and clear. So as we're moving forward, we'll be reducing that. We'll have one full-time peer coach, and then again looking to restructure that type of position to be able to get support for our staff.
What is the district doing to mitigate any impact on morale of the teaching staff, just the general staff in the district as you go through these, changes that might have, big impacts on them?
Yeah, I think one is being present in schools, going out and educating, asking questions, answering questions, I should say, as we're, out in schools. So was out this morning, just working through some of that. So I think a lot of just understanding the why, and that these are bigger structural issues that we have, that we continue to advocate for at the state level, for funding for public education. Across the board, you can see referendums that will be popping up, all over the valley, and that's not a coincidence. So this is a structural state issue that we need to continue to work through, so just again more communication, on that as we work through it, these are difficult times. I mean, they're difficult situations. So to be able to again be able to talk to people, and that's all of our executive team, staff to be able to help support out at the buildings and work through this, and have an understanding and a clear path that as we move through our reductions over the next couple of years, we want to have a process that's responsive, always responsive to feedback. We're going to need to be able to provide initial proposals, so the engagement of staff through the process, not only this year but in the upcoming years, is going to be really critical.
Was there anything else that the district could have done besides having to get rid of positions? I'm sure it was a last resort, but I guess was there anything else that you guys could have done?
Yeah, I mean, staffing is 80% of our budget, right? And so when we have this type of structural deficit, it's going to have to be, primarily staffing. So as we are looking at everything, continue to analyze our budgets as we're moving forward, we'll a lot of that will need to be able to come from staffing, and we'll continue to take recommendations as we go.
As it relates to the two rules of principles that y'all were looking to have,
Yeah.
One that you're going to eliminate, is that person going to stay on with the district in a different role, or that position going altogether?
That position is gone altogether, yes, and so that position won't exist. To be determined on the particular staff member, but related to that position, will not exist. We had two very good principals, that were to be suited for those roles. We appreciate all the contributions that both of them have made, and that came down to a seniority position, situation for us as we move forward.
When you were going through this process of coming up with this new potential, revision to what you're doing with the budget, how did you determine what changes to make, what positions to, now potentially keep? What was that process look like? Because I'm sure it's difficult to look at, positions throughout a school district and determine which ones are important enough to
Yeah.
keep or not?
Yeah, so we were engaged from our administrative team at the district office level, and then all of our principals were also involved, and really anybody who oversees a budget to be able to see what are the efficiencies that we can find in the budget, and then from a staffing standpoint, what are the targets that we need to be able to hit to be able to get to the number that we needed to overall. So $5.5 million is a lot of money, and so those recommendations were brought forward with the administration team, and then prioritized. We also then did a staff survey, so we had over 600 responses to a staff survey looking for efficiencies, because there's things throughout the system that we might not have eyes on, that staff members are going to have some recommendations for. So all of those things were synthesized used in the prioritization process, and that's where we came up with the initial recommendations. And so when the board talked about the initial recommendations, certainly we got feedback from board members along with community members, and staff, and then students, and then be able to make those revisions then coming in. So that was part of the process, always to be able to put up an initial group of recommendations, and then to be able to respond and revise those. The important part now is that we can get moving. Like, we need to be able to set the reductions in motion so we can conduct our staffing process, and we can be ready to go for the 26-27 school year.
The Director of IT, sorry.
Sorry, no, I just want to say a couple more questions, and I wanted to make sure that Justin and Jonathan, that if you want to start with them.
Yeah.
Sure. The Director of IT position, it feels like that came out of, I don't want to say left field, but it didn't seem like it was up for consideration before. What kind of led to know that position being eliminated, and how does the district move forward without that position?
Yeah, good question. So we had there was a technology position that was included in the original proposal, and so certainly all departments were looked at. So technology was part of our conversation, and as we looked at again the amount of money that we needed to reduce, we looked at just what duties could be done in different places. That was the director position is a position that rose to the top as part of the revisions. We needed to bring back then a specialist position that we had for our cameras and communication, and so that position is brought back to help supplement that loss. And then there'll be some restructuring within the department to be able to cover those duties. So that's something that we're taking a look at. Yeah.
The survey was 600 responses. Was that before the December meeting, or was that recently?
So that was before the December meeting, yeah. So that was as we collected responses, did the prioritization late November, early December, and so that was feedback that we had received for the initial proposals.
Okay, and when the district went, and this was years ago, the district went to referendum, I think in 14, to get like Google Chromebooks and such.
Yeah.
Are the IT positions, are any of those linked to that referendum money?
No.
Okay.
And then, obviously, it's not looking quite like 70 positions anymore that will go, but there is still a substantial amount of people who will likely be leaving the district. So I guess what's your message to maybe some of the people who aren't sure that it could be them? There are people who are going to work today, maybe not knowing that they could be moving out of this job in the future. So maybe what's your message to them?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to everybody that it was directly affected, but as we go through the staffing process, right, there'll be an evolution to this. So one, we want to thank everybody for their service, and know that they've put their heart and souls into our students, and appreciate that work. This is not anything that any of us want to be able to have to take on, which is why we continue to advocate at the state level to be able to adequately get public funding for public schools. But again, we appreciate everybody's efforts, and as we go through the process, there's a lot of changes that happen throughout the system. The advantage of being in a big system is that one opportunity closes in one space, and there might be another one in another space, and so we'll have to play that out. Our staffing process is going to take through probably mid-April, beginning of May, to be able to really see what those results are.
Just one more from me, and I appreciate your time, Dr. Davis. At the last board meeting, one of the other Board of Education members had mentioned it, and then there's perception among maybe some people that kind of the potential cuts affect people in other departments more so than your staff at central office. What would you say when people are saying that, when people have that perception? What's your response to that?
Yeah, so all departments were looked at, and as we looked at our revisions, we had administrative cuts that were part of that also. So we want to make sure that we're running an efficient organization, and we want to make sure that we're as distanced from students as much as possible. And knowing that we also have essential services that are done that we need to make sure that continue to run. So it's a difficult process as we're moving forward, and we just appreciate everybody's feedback and responsiveness, and we believe that the recommendations now moving forward put us in a position to be able to land this now and be able to plan for next year.
I think one final question, yeah.
So sorry, I forgot.
Yeah.
Now you have driver's ed back on board.
Yeah.
You were talking about alternative funding source. Do you have any ideas what that would look like?
We don't, but certainly if anybody out there is interested in funding driver's education, that would be something that we would be interested in. We know that it's an essential service for many of our families that may be new to the city, new to the country, and many of their teenagers serve as their only driver in some families. And so that's an essential service that was clear that the board wants to make sure that we maintain. And so we'll certainly be working, I think, with some community organizations that have helped us through some philanthropy in the past, Community Foundation potentially being one of them, and try to make sure that we can supplement that, because the $125,000 a year is something that we just can't continue to afford to lose that money, but we want to be able to provide that service. So we're looking forward to a partnership that can help with that.
Is the finance committee looking at increasing the fee per pupil for that?
Potentially, they're going to look at all options. Yeah, but that's a potential option, but there's a lot of nuances that would go with that also.
All right, thank you everyone. And assuming that you're probably set, anything else?
I need some B-roll of the room, Katie. Other than that, I think I'm good.
It's beautiful, you're welcome. All right, thank you all, and obviously we'll continue to be providing updates, but we just wanted to be able to have this opportunity knowing that.